Thank you.
Okay, now, okay, back to Sister Lily. Sister Lily.
Sister Sharon, do you have any video?
Yes, we do. We do have video.
Would you like to just test it out?
Oh, maybe test also, huh?
Oh yeah, test the sound, is it? Okay. Yeah, just make sure there's sound. Yeah, right. Just give me a second. Let me just see the video. Let me just see this video. Oops. Oops. Oh, give me a fright.
Yeah, you can hear the sound.
Is it fine? Can you hear it all right?
Yeah. But there's no video, right? Just the sound.
Yeah? Okay, we have a few videos actually. This is one of them. It should be all right.
Is there a video moving? It's like segment, just a slide.
Oh, is it not moving? Sorry, I'll just have to go back to that slide. Oh, let me just share again. Share the video. So say if I'm up to that slide. Sorry, it's towards the end.
Your video is embedded in the PPT, Sister Sharon?
Yeah, it is embedded in the PPT. Yeah, and I play now. Is it okay?
Yeah, it's okay now.
Yeah.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. It should be all right. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Just go back to the first screen and I'll stop sharing now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's start now. Warm welcome to our Great Masters, Hualien Dharma team, and brothers and sisters around the globe to Saturday Hualien Dharma Talk. A very good morning. Let us start the session for today. Recently, disasters have happened so rampantly one after another. Due to the great imbalance of four elements. Now with the COVID-19 virus pandemic around the world, Master have great concern and earnestly urge everyone to repent and adopt vegetarian meal. Going vegetarian is a way to express our sincere piety, to pray for peace and world free of disasters. It is the purest way of love for all living beings. Now let us send our sincere prayers into the 10 directions. May the Sangha land be free from disaster and peace prevails in the world. Let us sing the prayer song with sincere prayers.
In my heart, I feel deep gratefulness. All my heart is filled with sincere prayer. From all corners of the world, let us join our hearts and pray for a world of harmony and peace. From my heart, I pray. May we join our hands
all minds be purified, may there be peace in your community, may there be no disaster in this world. Let us recite the universal love and blessing. With loving respect, gratitude, and confidence, let us wish every person in our lives a healthy body, an enlightened mind, and a total fulfillment in universal love. Now let us expand this consciousness to include every person in the world, every being in the universe. Let our unified love make this wonderful world even better. Let us all immerse ourselves in the joyful embrace of universal love. Before we listen to the wonderful sharings, let us invite Father Robert to let us in paying homage to your triple gems. Let us pay our respects for these teachings and explanations to the Buddha and Master Cheng Yuan by making 3 sincere bows. Please rise, palms together. First bow. Second bow. Third bow. And a bow to our beloved Abode Master who could join us today. Today we have Sister Sharon and Yin who will be sharing with us, reach out with kindness to all those in need, and followed by Brother Joe Huang. And now let us invite Sister Tzu Chi for the weekly summary. Sister Tzu Chi, over to you.
Good morning, all. Okay. Today is a different background. I'm now in KK. I just climbed Mount Kinabalu and my face is so red. Don't know how that happened. Okay, so last week we had Brother David Liu. Question 1 was if by chanting the Diamond Sutra 3,000 times, one can gain liberation. Chanting is a repetition of words and does nothing if not put into action. Question 2 asks if blood donation is considered a higher merit compared to other types of donations. The answer is not to compare merits. By comparing, you are already looking for compensation. We asked how we can be a good Buddhist if we cannot remember Buddhist verses. The reply is that memorizing is unimportant. Instead, resonate more with certain phrases. Constant reciting without embracing the meanings through action are ineffective exercises. Brother David emphasized knowledge is power, but knowledge without action is useless. Question 4 tells of a parent whose 19-year-old son does not want to listen to his advice. Parents give birth to physical, not their heart and mind. That should suffice. Parents should work to building good affinity with their children and not count on how many times they obediently abide by their wishes for things to be done. And then we had Sister Su Ching and Brother Jin. Sister Su Ching spoke about the importance of silence. There is no need to be pompous, for things speak for themselves. For instance, we need not to be reminded of how high the sky is, for we can see that it is. Likewise, we need not boast about how capable we are with our accolades and pieces. Silence has been known to prevent many misunderstandings, but even more important than silence is the art of effective listening. Master exemplified this trait so much. With this skill, she forms good affinities with the Tzu Chi touch. There are 3 traits of being a good listener, and they are such. 1 is allowed to speak. 1 is to allow the speaker to talk. Don't rush to take over. Don't be hasty or judge. Instead, wait patiently and let the speaker say his piece. Sometimes the speaker just wants to be heard, and then his anxiety will cease. Secondly, when the speaker is complaining, don't point out that he is wrong. Be his emotional support rather than singing a critical song. Thirdly, when the speaker apologizes, do not berate him. Allow him space to explain himself rather than highlighting the wrongdoer and the victim. Sometimes we say it best when we say nothing at all. Holding our tongues while strengthening our listening skills is a good personal protocol. Okay, that is it for me. I think I'll pass directly to Sister Sharon. Sister Sharon, over to you.
And sorry, before that, before Sister Sharon, and Sister Su Ching and Sister Lily for the wonderful summary and the facilitating. We are very glad to have Sister Sharon and the team with us today. The four of them are Jianxi and Pei Xin. Two of them are Sister Sharon's own children, Hannah and Georgia, and we have also Michael and Brother Lin in the sharing team today. The team will focus on this hospital help during the peak of pandemic and lockdown during their recent flood relief in New South Wales. Okay, over to you. We look forward to the wonderful sharing by Sister Sharon.
Thank you. I'll share the screen now. Just make sure that can you all see? Can you all see all right?
Yeah, Sister.
Good morning, Shifus, Brother Joe, and Sister family all around the world. My name is Sharon, and I'm from Australia. Today with me here, we have Hannah Frazer, Michael Tsai, Georgia Frazer, and Robert Lim. We are going to share with you that even in the inevitable moments when all seems challenging and dark, how Tzu Chi volunteers in the right light reach out to illuminate others with light that shines from the heart. The coronavirus pandemic is proving to be one of the toughest challenges of our generation. There is no doubt that we are going through a very challenging and stressful time at present. Early last year, we thought we had this virus under control, but suddenly in July, we started to feel like it went back to the start of the pandemic again, just like in March 2020. Though a large number of effective and safe vaccines have been developed and vaccination rollouts in many countries have been impressive, we knew that it was going to take a Herculean effort to roll out vaccines to the whole world. We also knew that the longer it took to do so, the more chance that a more dangerous variant might emerge, and it has. The Delta variant has been a game changer. It caught many countries unaware, including Australia. After containing the virus through lockdowns and tough border rules earlier in the pandemic, when Delta hit, Australia suffered again and went through another round of lockdowns. Paramedics transporting COVID-19 patients have been forced to drive elsewhere or wait for hours as Sydney big hospitals were under significant strain due to bed shortages. Sydney intensive care units were so overwhelmed with patients. In the midst of the lockdowns, Tzu Chi volunteers didn't stop. Knowing that hospitals were in need of help to support the tense and anxious situations, we approached the hospitals to see what we could do to support them while they were risking their lives to help care for COVID-19 patients. Tzu Chi Sydney have been supporting the Cancer Centre for the last 2.5 years by making chemotherapy bags and cancer caps for patients. Trusting our good intentions, medical staff started reaching out to us. They asked whether we could make them caps for the doctors and nurses. They have seen our beautiful handmade caps for patients before and asked whether we could also do similar like that for them. They say doctors and nurses had gone through too many of the disposable caps each day, which is really bad for the environment. And it was also really uncomfortable wearing the disposable caps for long hours. The airborne contamination in cloth caps is also low, resulting in a big win for the cloth caps. So we cloth caps for the hospital. So in the peak of the pandemic with lockdown, when everyone felt helpless and couldn't do anything, our volunteers were easier than ever. We went to buy materials for the caps, and some of our volunteers even went to buy machines to start making the caps. And here we are, we started making the cloth caps for the hospitals. Hospitals say our handmade caps are really remarkable. The print is so colorful and stylish, which really lifted their spirits. From one hospital to another, from one district to another district, we started making colorful caps for the hospital's emergency departments, ICUs, and operation theaters. We reached out to all public hospitals in Sydney, the Northern Sydney district, the Western Sydney district, the Sydney local health districts, and the southeastern Sydney districts. Volunteers who thought that because of the lockdown, they couldn't do anything or feeling bored sitting at home could now have an opportunity to help others. Their great love has reached out to so many hospitals around Sydney. This is the Prince of Wales Hospital. As we continue to donate cancer caps and chemotherapy bags for the cancer patients, we also starting making caps for their surgeons, doctors, and nurses at the emergency and the ICU. And this one on the right-hand side, our stories of making caps for the hospitals were so everyone knew about it, and the SBS News actually came to interview the doctors and nurses. This photo was taken out at one of the biggest hospitals in Sydney, Royal Prince Alfred Hospital. We donated the most caps to this hospital. Director of the strategy and communication told us that these caps will go in seconds the minute they enter the emergency department. Everyone really appreciates our beautiful handmade, good quality caps, and that these handmade caps, to them, they say that really lift the spirit of the staff who work tirelessly at the hospital. So while working on the caps, we also asked them, what else can we do? Is there anything else that we can do to support the hospitals besides donating face masks, hand sanitizer, gloves, and handmade caps? I'll now pass on the sharing to Hannah Frazer. Hannah is my daughter. She is one of our commissioner in training. Hannah also helped as an English translator for Kaohsiung. Hannah is a medical student and worked through the pandemic at the hospital. Over to you, Hannah.
Thanks, Mum. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name's Hannah Frazer, and I am a commissioner in training. I'm also a medical student, and I think during this pandemic, it's given me, it's put me in a unique position in the fact that I can be part of the side of Tzu Chi that's been helping others, but also on the recipient end, receiving that help. So if we go to the next slide. Next slide.
Yep, that's it.
So during the pandemic, the vaccine started rolling out and they needed everyone on board. So all of us medical students had to go into the community and vaccinate individuals. And of course, when you're vaccinating individuals and facing patients all day, you have to wear a mask all the time. And masks can be quite uncomfortable on the ears. And a lot of us were getting really red behind the ears. So Tzu Chi volunteered to make us ear savers. So if you can go to the next slide.
Yeah.
So essentially what an ear saver is, it's a piece of cloth with 2 buttons on it. And what you do is you put it behind your head and the loops of the mask go around the buttons instead of on your ears. So it takes the pressure off your ears. And that was really essential for us during this time because we were wearing masks all day, out for hours every day. And it really took the pressure off from behind the ears and made wearing masks a lot more comfortable. If there's one message I'd like everyone to take away today is that everyone, no matter what skill set or how much time they have available, has the opportunity to help in this project. And because there's a variety of roles that can suit people with a variety of skills. So you can see here, this is me at home. After going into the hospital, making some ear savers. If we go to the next slide.
Yeah. It's nice on the next slide. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I can't see it on the next slide here. Essentially, making the ear savers has multiple different steps. So the first step is, of course, cutting the fabric. Next slide. And many different people got involved with that. So it had everyone from different skill sets. And then after cutting the fabric, we then need to iron the fabric into the shape. And then sew the ear savers together, and then of course sew the buttons on top. And you can see in this collage here all the different people involved. We had the whole family involved, my sister's partners, we had the elderly, Basically everyone could do this from home because these are such small items, and you can do them in your spare time watching TV. Even if you couldn't sew, you could still help cutting the fabric, buying the fabric, sewing the buttons. So it was a very big team effort. But I think it also just highlights how everyone in the community has a role and they can come together just, regardless of, different sewing ability. So if we go to the next slide. So you can see here, this is essentially what the ear savers look like. We distributed them to different hospitals. Mum, can we go to the next slide? Yeah, so here we are, we're distributing these to the ED. This is what the ear savers look like. It's essentially just a piece of fabric with 2 buttons on them. We also distributed these to the surgical units as well in the hospitals. And they've proven to be very, very useful. So these were distributed alongside the scrub caps that were mentioned earlier. And I think in total we made a few thousand, and they were distributed to 17 different hospitals within New South Wales. And so we'd now like to play a video that highlights the ear saver journey. And I hope you enjoy it.
密集的花纹图案，鲜艳的色彩，看着令人喜悦，送给医护人员。They love them. They go very quickly. I'll go now and they'll be gone. That's really wonderful. And the colours, does that give them a little bit of a... No, honestly, people are so appreciative, and obviously appreciative for the gift, but also appreciative that they know the community is with them. That's really lovely. And the ear savers really save our ears. Because wearing the mask all day can be quite... hard to do, and this one just takes some of the pressure because we have the goggles and the mask, so it takes some pressure. 6月26号起，雪梨封城已经超过100天。戴上雪梨慈济志工亲手缝制的帽子，医护眼神有笑意，而这些帽子也有部分送往癌症中心，给患者舒适感与安全感。
刚好碰到疫情的关系，大家都宅在家里面嘛，在家有事情做。而且还能做好事情，能付出，那就是做得很开心哦。
点滴汇聚的暖流，总共捐助27家医院，志工要用这些色彩缤纷的贴心小物，陪伴前线医护继续守护生命。
3个月不到的时间，我们成就了帽子1500多顶，然后护耳套也1000多个。
密集的花纹图案，鲜艳的色彩。
So thank you very much, Hannah. Yeah, this was what we did for the hospital. So, but at this moment, we already donated over 3,000-4,000. So in a very short period of time of 4 months, we actually did over 2,000, rushing out the caps and the ear savers for the hospital. Now I'd like to share with you our recent flood in Australia. You may have heard of the recent floods in Australia. Flood warnings have in place across New South Wales as the state has been pummeled by extreme weather events all year. River levels are at their highest for more than 30 years. By the end of March, Sydney has already received a year's worth of rain, and it is still raining. Evacuation orders have been issued in many flooded areas, and many roads have been closed. The level water has been so high it completely covered cars and houses. During the period of heavy rain, 30 Sydney volunteers went to an area called Windsor, which is 45 minutes from Sydney, to see firsthand the flood conditions. Windsor has flooded last year and has been flooded again this year. When we reached Windsor, we could see that the water had risen significantly, and some of the houses we helped last year were already submerged underwater. We spoke to the residents and the federal MP of the region to see how we could help the community. The most sought after help was to help clean after the floods. For those living in the Windsor area, it probably feels like it has been raining forever. Those who have been lucky enough to have homes on higher ground weren't flooded, but they have been hit with mold growing everywhere due to the high moisture levels in the air. And those on the lowlands are facing huge cleanups and massive bills at the very least. As the flood peaked at Windsor, reaching 13.88 meters, the entire Windsor Bridge was submerged. So as flood levels subsided, we went to Windsor and another nearby town, Pitt Town, to help flood victims with the cleaning up, including the removal of debris, ruined furniture, and waste. Now I would like to invite a few of our volunteers to share their experience with the cleanup after the flood. First, we have Michael. Michael is a commissioner in training this year. He is the third generation of Tzu Chi. His grandma is our very own Tzu Chi Australia seed. Really great to have his family with us too. Well, without wasting more time, I will now pass the platform to Michael. Over to you, Michael.
Thanks for that, Sharon. Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Tsai, and as Sharon said, I'm a commissioner in training from Sydney. I come from a long lineage of Tzu Chi commissioners. So both my mother and father's parents and families were heavily involved in Tzu Chi, and my paternal grandparents were actually the first Tzu Chi seeds in Sydney. When I was young, I attended Tzu Chi Chinese Academy, but I was oblivious to the importance of Tzu Chi's teachings and extensive work that they did in the community. It has only been recently that I've come back and truly understand what Tzu Chi is about. And through training, I continue to be astounded by the depth of Master Cheng Yen's wisdom. Recently, I had the extraordinary opportunity to be invited to assist with the flood cleanup at Pitt Town, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to share with you my experiences. Next slide.
Yeah.
It was truly an incredible and eye-opening experience. Here's us at 6:30 a.m. eating those delicious vegetarian meals that Tzu Chi, Sigu, and Sibu Bo prepare for us, giving us the energy to start the day. Next slide.
Yeah. Sorry.
Here's another photo of us getting ready to embark on our journey, blissfully unaware and very much not mentally prepared for what was about to come.
Yep.
When I first arrived in Pitt Town, I really couldn't believe my eyes. You know when people say, when I see it, I'll believe it? Well, I saw it and I couldn't believe it. This is Lagoon Road, which literally turned into a lagoon.
Yeah,
it was filled with debris. And at our first sight, the paddock had been invaded by tons and tons of wooden planks, tires, pharmaceutical bottles, and plants from the golf course a kilometer up the bank. We spent the morning cleaning up the paddock. What you see behind us was meant to be short green grass. So what looked like an impossible task was able to be completed via group effort. Speaking to the owner, we learned that they had already been through the flood the year before, and it was heartbreaking to have to rebuild again so soon. Even though Australians are very stoic. Oh, next slide. Next slide. Yeah, so speaking to the owner, I'll go back. No, go back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so speaking to the owner, we learned that they had already been through a flood the year before, and it was heartbreaking to have to rebuild again so soon. Like I said before, even though Australians are very stoic and they don't like to receive help, they were very grateful for the help this time round. Next slide. This photo shows the fruits of our hard work. And this is the literal fruits that the owners so kindly shared with us after we helped them out. So yeah, this is the second house that we visited. You can see the flood line on the fence behind us. I'd like to mention that my fiance, Shiny, and I, pictured in this photo, are due to be married in less than a month. And it has been very stressful planning a wedding during COVID. Despite this, we thought it was imperative to put wedding planning aside to help with the flood relief during these challenging times. We were able to work effectively as a team, and it brought us closer together. So this house had an incredible amount of waterlogged furniture and carpet, which we dragged out to the curb. Don't let this picture fool you. What looks like a very light piece of carpet is actually very heavy due to the water. I'm actually seconds away from falling backwards onto the grass in this frame.
Yeah.
This is how we felt throughout the whole day. One of the volunteers almost passed out. You can see the sweat on his clothes. This is from the fourth and last house that I visited. We did visit more. It was perhaps the most memorable. Please take note of the height of the fence and the location of the garage in this photo. So after a long, long day, I distinctly remember when the owner of this house saw my build and pointed to me and said, "Hey, you, carry this massage chair to the garage." And so off I went by myself. It was waterlogged and incredibly heavy. The garage was a good 100 meters away. The chair was too large to fit through the fence, so I tried to single-handedly lift it over a picket fence. This was not a good idea. Sorry. Yeah. So in this slide, this is a sample of what it looked like. So obviously I sprained my back. I remember lying on the floor, fatigued with severe back pain, thinking, why the hell did I come in my spare time to get bossed around by a cranky old man to break my back? So I said to myself, no more. I'm just going to sit here in this corner, hide away so that no one can see me until we leave. No one's going to miss me anyway. But then I saw the older Sibos working very hard to lift the chair afterwards, and I immediately felt remorseful. I thought, if they can do it, I should give it at least another go or help out. I do go to the gym for a reason other than trying to look good in a singlet. As more people joined to work on the cause, a total of 5 Sibos and myself were able to lift the chair over the fence, and with some difficulty, this gave us the second win to continue to help with the cleanup. On reflection, a few days later, as I lie on my bed with my sore back, I realized that I should have probably asked for help earlier. Because although we cannot achieve much alone, together we can do anything. And this is what makes being a part of Tzu Chi so special. Without us, the owner had no chance of moving all that furniture and debris alone. And I'm really glad that we were able to help him and countless others out. So to change things up, let's talk about physics. Everyone knows that Newton said that energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. Well, I think Tzu Chi's special power is transforming the sadness and devastation from disasters into love, compassion, and hope. Actually, it does one better and defies the laws by creating extra positive energy from those that we help, who are inspired to pay it forward to the wider community through the bamboo banks and their also further efforts. They share the great love that we talk so much about in Tzu Chi. So I think my time is up. I'd like to end by saying that I'm very grateful for Tzu Chi for this experience. I understand why Master Chen Yang asks us to always help those that are in need. I sincerely experience 见苦知福, and in Chinese that means Only when you experience pain and suffering do you realize how fortunate and lucky you are. It reminds me of the need to constantly be grateful each and every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Now I would like to invite Georgia to share her experience of cleaning up after the flood at Pitt Town. Georgia is my second daughter. She is doing volunteering training this year. She helps with the English translation for Kaohsiung as well. Over to you, Georgia.
Good morning, Chef Foos, Brother Joe, and Tzu Chi family all around the world. I'm Georgia, and I'm really excited to be sharing with you today. It's also my first time sharing in this forum, so very nice to meet you all. My parents, Sharon and Robert, have been part of our Tzu Chi family for 6.5 years, and they've always inspired me with all the volunteering work that they were doing. So I've decided this year to be a volunteer in training and also join our Tzu Chi family. Next slide, please, Mum. As my mum and Michael just touched on, we're currently facing torrential rain and flash floods in Australia. And this has had a really large impact on a multitude of communities, on people's properties, on animals, and everyone's overall morale. So as Michael mentioned, 2 weeks ago, a group of us at Tzu Chi went to go help with flood relief. And the Pitt Town Windsor community that we helped had a population of around 1,800 people, and it's an extremely tight-knit community. And it was absolutely heartbreaking to see the impact that the floods had on the town, and what is usually a buzzing, high-spirit community was just overwhelmed by a feeling of loss and sadness because of all the damage that had occurred to the rain. So next slide, please, Mum. The pictures that you're seeing are pictures of the Windsor Pitt Town community, and the water level reached 13.8 metres. That is so high, and as you can see, it reached nearly the tip of all of the houses. This house is literally completely submerged, and you can even see the trees in the back as well. These trees are so high usually, and they look like little shrubs because of how submerged they are in the water. And here's a picture of a water tank that is also completely submerged. And this house in particular is one that we helped. It was a family with grandchildren as well, and the owner's name was Jack. And he was actually telling us about how the street's water tanks had actually floated away. They detached from the house. They floated down the river because of all the rain. This obviously meant that they had no water. They of course had no electricity as well. And they had no home because everything was just completely submerged by the flood. So most families actually had to pack what they could carry into their cars with their children and their pets, and then stay at caravan parks in other suburbs that weren't as affected by the floods. And I can only imagine how scary that would have felt, knowing you're leaving your home, all your belongings, the place where all your family's memories are made, and not knowing what's going to happen and what it's going to look like when you return. So I really think all of us really felt for the families when we were helping out. Next slide, please, Mum. So this picture here is a picture of Jack's family visiting their house again on their boat to see the damage a week or so after the worst of the flood. And again, if we put ourselves in their shoes, this is their home and they're accessing it via a boat because it was so underwater. And I think that would have been super confronting from them. Even just looking at the photo, it's really confronting having to visit your house in a boat and not knowing what's lying behind those doors. And as you can see, the dogs came along for the journey. This is Jack's daughter. And yeah, the door is all underwater. And actually the house, usually it's actually quite high up on a hill, and it had lots and lots of steps going down to the grass. So this is super submerged. So in preparation for the floods, the family put everything upstairs on that top level you can see, because they didn't think that the water level would reach that high. And of course, unfortunately, they were wrong. So everything on that top level ended up being damaged. And something really interesting that Jack, the owner, told me was, as we know, Michael mentioned that there were floods in Windsor around 2 years ago. And from that, this family unfortunately lost everything. So they had to start from scratch from that. But because they didn't want it to happen again, they actually built a portable kitchen this time. So it's a kitchen that's on wheels, and they were ready to wheel it upstairs so that they could protect their kitchen this time if their floods were bad. So they put the kitchen upstairs. And as you can see, the water level from the picture, the mud is going all the way to the top. It's hit, you know, that board in the back has mud all over it. Their kitchen, even though it was a portable one and they tried to prepare for this year's floods, was just damaged as well this year. So it's really very sad. So here is a picture of everything that was on that top level that is just ruined and they had to chuck out. A lot of these families don't have insurance as well, so they've lost a lot of money. But one of the saddest things from just, I was looking through what was thrown out, and Jack actually had a box, and it was full of his grandchildren's fingerprints and handprints from when they were babies and when they were first born, and it was just so water damaged he had to chuck it out. But there were photo books, and I think that's the saddest part, just really losing lots of memories that you can't get back. So because Jack's water tank had floated away when we went to help out, they had no water. And one of their neighbours was really kind. They actually shared the water tank with Jack so that we could go in and help the family clean up, because we used a neighbour's water tank. And it's just another example of the community spirit and how everyone was really in this together. And this was also the first time they could actually go to the bathroom in their own house in weeks. Beforehand, when they'd come to visit, they had to go outside because there was no water. So here's a picture of us filling up the bucket to go into the toilet with water from the water tank. So our Tzu Chi team had a chat to Jack and his family to hear their story, and we lent our helping hand to clean the house with all the damage that the water created. There was mud and dirt everywhere. This picture is actually after we cleaned up quite a bit, but even when you enter the house, you could just smell the dirt and the mud, and there was just mud absolutely everywhere. And a lot of the house is white, so it was very noticeable. And I'm sure they were very confronted and sad when they saw that as well. But the work that we did in 4 hours as our Tzu Chi team, Jack said would have taken him and his wife months to complete. They were so, so grateful. And next slide, Mum. They were just so grateful for all the work that we helped them with. And this picture is quite shocking. When I walked into the house and saw this, this is a picture of their roof. The ceiling paint and that material had actually fallen off.
Saya nakubah sini pulang palan betul dalam tak tempat sini dah buka pening tu dah. Saya marah pasal patut kekemput nam tak tu sampai tu nam tengah puluh orang ke badal kulaca.
So the ceiling roof had actually fallen off. So what's left behind that, you can see, is like the wooden slats and all of that roof material left in the house. And you can see again all the mud on the walls that was on their white, beautiful walls. Next one, please, Mum. And again, this is Brother Willie standing at the top, and he's literally at the peak of the house. You can see where that mud line was. And our Tzu Chi team were there scrubbing for hours. We were helping them clean up. And Jack, when he came upstairs to see what the work we'd done, his face was just so invaluable. He was nearly in tears. He was actually going to completely demolish the top level of the house and then repaint everything. But because our Tzu Chi team did such a great job and he didn't expect it, he said, you know what, I can actually keep this because you guys have saved this for me. And yeah, he was very, very happy with us, which was a really good feeling. So saying that we're stronger together, it's definitely true. Much of the furniture that Mike was talking about was very, very heavy because it was all waterlogged. So when we all worked together to lift and carry the damaged furniture out to the front, we could do it. I couldn't have done it on myself, but because we had 4 of us, because we worked in a team, we got it done. And yeah, we're definitely a stronger team together. And you can see here just how grateful and happy Jack and his wife are after all of our help on the property. It's very touching because when we first saw them, they're obviously very sad and there's so much feelings of loss, but it was so nice to even just see a smile on their face from the work that we had done. And here we are giving our Tzu Chi handmade blankets to all the residents from flood affected properties that we helped that day. And it was really emotional. All the residents were really emotional. We were all emotional, and it was just so nice to have been able to help out. And here's a picture of my dad and I volunteering and helping clean up at the second property. And Michael talked about this property with all the rubbish having come onto their yard. It's usually just grass, but all of that shouldn't be there. So next slide, please, Mum. And it was also really special for me because my dad works overseas and was only back for 2 months. So I loved being able to spend our time together volunteering, and I felt really rewarded because it's something that we shared, and Tzu Chi gave us the opportunity to do this together. And we had really great team spirit with the Tzu Chi team when we were cleaning up the property. We had a production line, as you can see, because we're stronger as a team. We're passing over 150 pieces of washed up timber on the property to each other, and then putting it at the front of the house so that they could collect it for rubbish pickup. So we are definitely stronger together. All the residents that we helped that day said it would have taken them months to clean up if it was just them and their wife or their husband. But our Tzu Chi team helped them clean up in a few hours. And these communities, they've been through enough, and they've lost so much in the flood. So it was one day for us, but it meant the world and months of work to them. So it was amazing to see our manpower. We multitasked over a few different houses, and at the end of the day we cleaned 5 houses in total. So I feel really happy that we helped out the small community. They were all really grateful, and it was very heartwarming to see how touched they were. So yeah, very grateful that Tzu Chi gave me the opportunity to do this, and thank you for listening.
Now I would like to invite Brother Robert to share. Brother Robert is a very diligent volunteer at Tzu Chi. Brother Robert attention Fashang every morning, and if I forget to send out the translated life wisdoms link for that day, Brother Robert will be the first to ask, where is it, Sharon? So over to you, Brother Robert.
Yes, good morning, brothers and sisters. And my name is Robert Lim. I'm actually from Kota Kinabalu, Sabah, Malaysia. So I've been in Australia for quite a while, but then I joined Tzu Chi a couple of years ago. And in my family, I met my wife, Eileen, who's also a commissioner, and her family's got about also quite a few commissioners. There are 8 of us in the family of commissioners. So, and my sister, who is in Penang, but he came to Australia also a commissioner too. Anyway, so let's go back to the slides, Sharon.
Yeah.
Hello, Sharon. Slide.
Yep.
Yeah, just to. I was with Robert Frazer, who is Sharon's husband, as you know. And she just came back from South Africa. She had been stuck in South Africa for a couple of years. And when she came back, it's just in time for him to do all the organizing the cleanup. And so within just short time, he has been very busy in organizing and coordinating the cleanup. And Sharon actually is the organizer of the flood cleanup this year. Next slide. Yeah, we went to Windsor to inspect the floods, and when we saw the floods, it was just as bad as the previous year. So we were so sad in seeing, it's flooded again, being only a year ago. And we make friends last year with one of the painter, and who becomes a very good friend of us, because we cleaned up Windsor last year. And he introduced us. We went to the federal member of parliament and to the office, and we just asked her whether we can help, what we can do this year. So she heard about Tzu Chi doing the previous year's cleanup, and she was very appreciative that we came again and to volunteer to help in the cleanup. So we did visit the family last year, which we cleaned up, but then the houses down next to the other houses, they're all flooded, and then we couldn't see even the rooftop. And then, yeah, the next slide is okay. Anyway, we suggested, the member of parliament suggested us to go to Pitt Town to help out in the cleanup, because it seems to be a less fortunate and poor suburb. So we went to inspect Pitt Town, and then we coordinate with the people there, and we started to clean up the following week. So we went to this family, as you see, we have to the cleanup, and the family very appreciative of what we've been doing, and they offer us fresh fruits and all that to thank us for all that. And then we provided them lunch, which is vegetarian hamburgers, and they were surprised that we provide them with lunch too. And we also, after the event, we also give them like the blankets and all that. And they were so surprised that, we came all the way to help them and to do all the cleanup, and yet we give them gifts, and they just burst into tears. So they are very, very good. And also we also give them cash vouchers too, as you know, and to help them out. And so we make a lot of friends that day, and it's a memory, which we can't forget. So recently, the last few days, it has been raining again. It seems the area is flooding again, and hopefully it's not as bad as the previous few weeks ago. So we may be called again to help in the cleanup, and which we all all the volunteers seems to be very enjoy, and with smiling faces and all that, and with no complaints. So which I'm surprised that we give with love. Is there any? I think this is the last slide, and then so over to you, Sharon.
Thank you very much, Brother Robert. Thank you for all the sharers here, and I just want to say this picture I put it in. This picture is a Roseville Bridge, and it's only 5 minutes from my house. So yeah, after the clean up at Windsor, the next day, we actually it was just so shocked that the rains continue on, and my friend who just lived, and I always go to her house, and luckily that day I didn't go, but when she sent this photo to me, I just got a shock because it's just so close to my house, which is just 5 minutes away, and this is exactly what happened. You can see all the cars basically swimming underwater, and the whole bridge was submerged, and even my house, the garage was flooded. So this is how really the floods affected and damaged a lot of properties in Sydney this year. So before I go, I want to share this video that capture all the basically the whole floods in the New South Wales.
Let us pray for peace in our land. Keep our hearts from sorrows and pain. Bless us all with joy and hope. Love and care for each one in this world. Let us pray for peace in our land. Keep our hearts from sorrows and pain. Bless us all with joy and hope. Love and care for each one in this world. Let us pray for peace in our land. Keep our hearts from sorrows and pain. Bless us all with joy and hope. Love and care for each one in this world. Let us pray for peace in our land. Keep our hearts from sorrows and pain. Bless us all with joy and hope. Love and care for each one in this world. Love and care for each one in this world.
Thank you very much, and thank you for listening. I'll just stop the share screen now. Pass it back to you. Oops. I just stopped. Oops. Thank you very much. I'll hand over back to the platform. It's time, right? 9:15, sister.
Ka'an Sister Sharon will very wonderful and heartfelt. Ka'an to Sister Sharon and team. Let us invite Brother Joe. share Raju for the feedback.
Okay, thanks to Sister Sharon's family, and I think it's the first time we see Hannah, we see Georgia, and also we see Michael and Robert. Wow. I think it's wonderful to see everybody. We didn't see Robert, the other Robert. We see Robert Lim, brother Robert Lin. But I think it's as I think the sister mentioned that it's the powerhouse, the powerful Roberts. Anyway, I really what really caught me was when Sister Georgia kept on saying, "Next, Mom." That feeling is it's not so much the content, it's the feelings where the closeness, that when you have this family and you're able to spend time doing something that is memorable, that is etched deep into your memory, and that every time you do something, every time you help others, every time you and I'm inclined to think that every time that in the future, because Michael is really young, in the future that he might still have opportunities to sprain his back, he's gonna remember the feelings, the memories of when we all work together to help out the affected, the inundated households. And I think that's one of the most important things that we have, which is the power of memory. This memory allows us to replay and remember the good and associate it with something more. So now we associate this sweating, this working, this dedication to the feelings of benevolence, the feelings of able to help people, the feelings of togetherness, the feelings of seeing the joy and the tears of the people that we help. And I really think that when we have such powerful memories and when we accumulate it, it becomes ever more powerful, that when we are in times of trouble, that this recall of the memory is able to help us through. So when we have so many of these positive, powerful memories of people working together, that will enable us to get through some of the bottlenecks and challenges that we might be facing in the future. Okay, so very much, many thanks. And I think we didn't get to hear how Brother Robert is stuck in Africa for 2 years. But I think that now we get to see him more. He's going to appear more in the photos and also with the daughters. And I think that it's going to be something that should be very wonderful when the whole family comes in together and work together. So very happy, and very happy for Sister Sharon and the whole family. And also thanks to Brother Robert and also Michael for the wonderful sharing. And I really like when Michael shared that, that is why I go to gym to work out, right? We work out for this reason. I remember there was one line, one quote from the Hollywood movie, Christian Bale, when he was the Batman in, I think it was Batman Begins. He was actually, his mansion was actually partially destroyed, and there was a pillar that fell on top of him, and he couldn't get himself out from underneath. And so Alfred, his butler, came in and said, "What is the point of doing all those push-ups if you can't get yourself out from underneath that pillar?" And so he pushed really hard, and then he got out of it. So anyway, so yeah, I think this actually goes in conjunction with what we're going to talk about today. So let me share my PPT. The things I'm going to share about is very different from what we have heard from just before. It's all going to be about something that I learned and something that I feel that I really would like to share with all of you. And it's basically today, if we are if we had participated in this morning's Wisdom at Dawn, you would know that there is no Wisdom at Dawn replay in the morning because we're now chanting the Lotus Sutra. And today is chapter 2. Today is chapter 2. So I thought it's a wonderful idea, wonderful timing to do a little bit of sharing of what chapter 2, Skillful Means, is talking about. And before you all turn away and say, it's going to be very boring, it's going to be all Dharma heavy, I'm going to tell you that, yeah, it's going to be a little bit heavy, but I try to make it lighter. I try to make it so that we don't look at too much into the specifics, but rather look into the big picture, the macrocosm. Let's not look into all the micro things, but let's look at the macro things about this chapter. And no, today I won't be able to cover all, but I would like to take you through the initial stages so that we would be able to understand this chapter much, much, much better. It's almost like if you try to get to know a person, this initial idea about who this person is, while it's not the full picture, but it actually has a pretty good idea of how and who this person might be. And so we are beginning in the first few parts to explain. And this is mainly the reason, the reason why I'm beginning to go deeper into chapter 2 is because this is exactly what our book study, the book study group is now doing. It's this the chapter 2, and there are five different volumes, and we finished the first one, so now we're on to the second. But very quickly going through what is this supposed to be about. So this chapter, the main point is to illustrate the one true path, illustrate the one true vehicle, illustrate the one true teaching. Okay, so that is the idea. Okay, so whatever, all the things, all the sutra that we're chanting, it's to show you that what Buddha is going to tell us, the one true path that there is. So the idea is, if the idea is to tell you about the one true path, then why is the chapter named Skillful Means? Okay, so it's almost like the naming of the chapter is telling you the exact opposite of what this chapter is saying, right? Skillful means, in effect, literally means that it's skillful, right? It's something that is to get you there, but it's not the final, the truth of the truth. It's something that gets you there. Skillful, right? It's not direct. It's just something to help you understand to get there. So if the chapter is to illustrate the truth, it's not talking about how to get there, then why is the chapter named Skillful Means? And this is something that I like to do very often. I like to ask questions, even the name of the chapter. And yes, I understand. The name of the chapter, it's actually not named by the Buddha, right? The Buddha would just be speaking and giving speeches and lectures about however he sees fit back in 2,500 years ago. So it's not like he started the day by saying that today I'm going to begin chapter 2. No, there is no such thing. So basically, it's the people that recorded, and it's actually, if you know the story, it's 100 years after the passing of the Buddha, then the disciples began to recollect all the teachings together. And then it's about 1,000 years, maybe more than about 1,300 years after that, that we have the translators that help translate the original doctrines into Chinese. That's what we have today. So that's why, especially, the thanks goes out to the translation team, whether you're working for the Kaohsiung team or you're going for the local team. Many thanks for the translation team for making this happen. You might not know the effects of your translation until thousands and thousands of years later. right? At the time of the translation, it's about maybe 1,300 years ago or 1,000 years ago. They would not know that even after 1,000 years, we're still talking about what they are translated. Now, granted, their translation, the results of their translation, it's top notch. They actually gathered all the brightest minds and all the most intellect, the most wise people together to do the translation. And that came out, the result that came out was the one of a kind translation text script that no one actually now, thousands of years later, no one thought of replacing. But anyway, so if the main point of the chapter is talking about non-skillful, which is the true path, then why is the chapter named Skillful Means? And that is something, you know, you could ask. You could ask many people about what they think, and you could figure out how, if they thought about this. Many people, including myself at first, didn't think much of the name, or just Skillful Means. But if it's supposed to talk about, you know, it's almost like if the main point of the chapter is to tell you black, and then the name of the chapter is white. Does it make sense? Okay. So one of the things that I thought of making sense is, I remember when back in when I was living in New York, the very first time I went to New Jersey, my parents would drive me, and we would see signs like this: "Welcome to New Jersey." Okay. But before we go into New Jersey, you always see, it tells you, now leaving New York, you know, the boundaries of states. And I'm sure in Malaysia and Singapore, it's probably the same. Anywhere you have a landlocked, you would have to tell you that this is the border. If you go further, that means you're going to go into the next state. And then the next state is going to welcome you. Okay, the next country, right, so is the border. So it's the same idea, right? But usually in Taiwan, we don't see this. Taiwan is too small. We don't have different. Yeah, we have different townships, but you know, if you keep all these signs there, there'll just be too many because we're too small. It's all jumbled up together, right? But this is the idea, right? Even though this chapter is talking about the illustration of the one true path, but essentially you're leaving, you are departing, you are pulling out of the skillful means. So you could say that this chapter could be named as Welcome to the One True Path, or it could mean that now you're leaving the skillful means. So there are many, many different ways to see the same things. Now it's just the two different sides of it. Yes, skillful means on the other side of the coin is one true path. So that is how I imagine this, right? And further on, this is the sign that was funny, you know, now leaving New York, leaving so soon. Was it something we taxed? Because New York is very high in taxes. And if you know that when we live in New York, many people live at the edges of New Jersey, and then they would go to New York to work. In New York, we have 3 taxes that we all have to pay, other than all the other, you know, investment and etc. You have the federal tax, the federal income tax, right? And then you have the New York state tax, and then you have the New York city tax. Now, everything just about in New York is taxed, and its tax is the highest in the US. So it was something funny, you know. Now you're leaving New York, right? You need to know why. So this chapter talks about why we're leaving, the skillful means, right? So it's titled Skillful Means, but it tells you why, it tells you how. So the main points of this chapter: how do you illustrate the one true path? By knowing what you're leaving for. You're leaving the skillful means for the one true path. You're leaving for the one true path, and you're leaving behind the skillful means, or you're rising above the skillful means. Now you need to know also why you're leaving, and also know how you can leave. And that's what this chapter is about. So it's more about what you're leaving from rather than where are you leaving for. So that is why perhaps the naming of the chapter is skillful means. Now, all these are speculation because, as I mentioned before, it wasn't exactly the Buddha that said, from this point on, this chapter shall be known as skillful means. These were all done by the translators and also the people that are putting together the translated text. And so imagine this, right? Master speaks every day, but how do you collect the things that Master speaks into collections and put them into collections and then 28 chapters? How do you make the boundaries? How do you break the boundaries, right? Do you record everything that was said? But sometimes the topics aren't actually continuations of the previous chapters, a previous subject, right? It could be Master today talking to one of the visitors, and it could be a different visitor tomorrow. There could be 5 visitors today, right? So how do you collect them? How do you band them into the same volume, same chapter, same idea? Buddha will be visiting, there will be many people, right? There will be kings and emperors and princes, and also, these elders coming to visit Buddha. And so Buddha isn't going to just sit down and talk, for a long time. Sometimes there are going to be conversation. So the people that's recording all the things that happen, how do you know that this part is included in this chapter or included in this text? And how do you know something else that should not be, right? So it's very difficult. So the naming of the chapter and also the divisions of the chapter is going to be left up to the people that are organizing the whole teachings. Anyway, so that is the first thing, right? Knowing the name, skillful means, and know what it's supposed to tell you, and know why it's named skillful means. If this whole sutra is supposed to tell us the one true path, then why is one of the most important chapter in this sutra is called skillful means? Now you know the idea. If you don't know what you're leaving for, and if you don't know what you're leaving from, and if you don't know how you're leaving, then how would you get to one true path? So you need to understand your past in order to move on to the future. And that's what skillful means is about. So let's look at deeper about what, why, and how. So what are you leaving for? And in the text, we know that this is something so tremendously wondrous Dharma. Wonderful, tremendously wondrous Dharma. It is so tremendous. It is so wondrous that cannot be explained. That can be explained. Simply cannot be explained. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're the wisest, if you are like Sariputra, who is the wisest of all the disciples of the Buddha. It cannot be explained. And even if everyone have the intellect and the wisdom of Shariputra combined, you still wouldn't be able to understand this tremendously wondrous Dharma. Okay? So you're leaving for something so tremendous. You're leaving for something that is so mysterious, that cannot be explained. Even the wisest of all the disciples can't understand. Well, great. So I'm leaving for something that you can't explain to me. Wonderful, right? So not only is this so wonderful and impossible to explain, but it's necessary for the attainment of Buddhahood. So this is very important. First, it tells you that this one true path that you're going to, I can't explain it to you. but it's necessary. So if you can explain it to me, but it's necessary, then how am I going to do this? How am I going to take this necessary step to the attainment of Buddhahood? That's what this chapter is about. This chapter is the bridge that connects with leaving the skillful means and reaching the one true path on your way to attaining Buddhahood. So it tells you the future, the goal is something that is so wondrous, but I can't explain it. You have to take this bridge, but I don't know how long it's going to be. I just know that this bridge will lead you to it, right? And how would you know how long it's going to be, right? If I tell you that it's going to take 10 minutes walk, well, how fast you walk, right? And if I tell you that it's going to be 10 kilometers, well, how do you explain to someone who doesn't understand the idea of kilometers? That is the problem, right? The problem is you can explain it in terms that you understand. But for people that don't use units like kilometer, right? In the United States, we use miles. We use the British system, while everywhere in the world, including the inventors of the British measuring system, uses the metric system, right? Kilometers or meters or centimeters. But instead we use miles, we use yards, we use inches. Okay, so that's the old system, right? So you can explain in your own ways that you think people understand, but people don't understand because they have different systems and different standards. And you say, well, it's simple, right? You just basically, have a conversion. Well, that's wonderful because that's called translation. If you watch movies or if you watch TV shows, I'm a Trekkie. So there is something on the badge. If you know what Trekkies are, it's the people that follow Star Trek. Okay, not the movie. Okay, it's the movies. I'm not so much into the original series, but I'm more of the next generation, which is about 20, 30, 40 years ago, I think. But anyway, so they have this badge, right? They have this badge, and it's called the Universal Translator. I don't believe such thing exists. But anyway, so such thing exists in the very, very, 26th century. I think it's where the story is based on. 24th or 26th century, depending on the stories. And what it does is that it's able to automatically translate all the things you say. And today we already have something like this, right? I think we can translate pretty much a good portion of all the languages that we hear, and it can probably do a good justice, maybe about 40, 50% authenticity of the actual language translation. But when it comes to the alien language, where the syntax, it's completely different, can you still do the same translation? Anyway, I think I'm off topic. I'm talking about something way different. Okay, so this is the bridge, right? This is the bridge. It tells you that you're going to something far away, but it gives you a goal, which is that is attaining Buddhahood. But it tells you also that it'll tell you the path and the tools. However, I can't explain anything more. I cannot explain that you're going to get there and you're going to see what you're going to see and the troubles you're going to face. I don't know, but I can give you the tools. It's almost like I give you the target, right? Drive to Windsor, right? Drive to Windsor and there is a flood there. And I give you a car. And that's it. You're going to have to figure it out, right? There's a map. You have to figure out your routes and how you get there. And I can't tell you. There's no way I can tell you. And this is where the idea comes from. You can put all the smartest, the brightest people together in the world combined. No one will be able to tell you what is going to happen on this journey, right? Is your car going to get stuck? About which point you're going to run out of gas? About which point you're going to get off and go to the rest stop for a brief rest? You can plan it out, but is things going to be the way that you think it's going to be? No. So That is what the main point is. You can put all the wisdoms together beforehand. It's not going to predict and tell you what is going to happen on this journey, right? Is it going to tell you that on the way, you're going to have a fight with your family, and then on the way, people are going to be upset? Are you going to know ahead of time that it's going to rain and what's going to cause something? It's going to have, the temperature is going to drop. We don't know, right? Just like Sister Sharon said, that the flood eventually came so close to the family, to the homes. And, even and even you're wise, like Shariputra, you still will not be able to experience all this beforehand unless you actually take the steps. That's what this chapter is talking about. You can have all these predictions, but until you're actually doing it, you wouldn't be able to know. You can read all the stories about how working together is very important. In the old days, we have this story where you have the brother, folding and bending the chopsticks, and I really think that story is very important, right? So the grandpa gives the two brothers. They're actually, they had a fight. So the grandpa says, "Well, let me give you one chopstick and try to break it in half." And then the brother each broke it in half. And then let me give you 2, let me give you 10. Can you break it in half? Now, if you have 2 people working together, you can break it in half. So that was the idea, right? But I always thought the grandfather, not so wise in that, why do you have to waste so many chopsticks? And maybe there are better ways to do this than breaking chopsticks, right? That is not environmental at all. But anyway, I'm once again, I'm straying from the point. That wasn't what I wanted to say, but that is also a very important point. So stop using bad stories to explain things, because I always get the wrong point. Okay, so this is the journey, right? So this is the pathway. This is the bridge that is going to connect, why you're leaving, right? So it's necessary for the attainment. Okay, so how can you get there, right? So this chapter starts off by telling you that there's something very wonderful that you need to get to Buddhahood, and it's so profound, so tremendously wondrous that you can't understand. But let me give you the tools. So it's like this, right? It's in Windsor, and there's a flood there, and I'm gonna give you tools. I'm gonna give you a car, and I'm gonna give you some of the tools that you need to clean up, and then you just go. So the Buddha explained that no one in the world, except for the Buddha, will know what is going to happen, but you just embark on the journey and you will know. But I'm going to give you the tools, because I don't want you to stray. I don't want you to go to the wrong place, and I don't want you to get there and not being able to do anything. So I'm going to give you a map. I'm going to give you some tools so that first, you don't stray. Second, when you found problems along the way, or when you get there, you can actually be of some help. That's what the next session is going to be, the tools that the Buddha is going to give us. So what are the tools? And these are the 37 principles of enlightenment, the 10 strengths, and the 4 fearlessness. Okay, so that's the first portion of the tools that the chapter 2 gave us. Okay, so the Buddha very, very clearly laid out that the goal is this attaining of the Buddhahood. And the way to get there is filled with mystery, filled with something that you can't, I cannot tell you, because you wouldn't know, you wouldn't understand. But I can give you the tools, and I can give you the ways to get there, but you got to do it yourself. Okay, so I give you the map, I give you a car, I give you some shovels and etc., some of the tools that you know, and I give you some food along the way. And maybe I give you some music to play along the way. I'm sure along the way, not everybody is sleeping, right? I'm sure there's some music play, and I'm sure there's some chit chats, and I'm sure there's some snacks along the way. So these are the things, imagine, that the Buddha gave you before you depart. And these are the things that will help you get through some of the bottlenecks and troubles that you are going to see. And in fact, these are the tools that are, if used correctly, are going to help you get through all the problems if used correctly. Unfortunately, we're stuck because we're using the map as if it's a napkin, right? We're using it like it's a mat where we eat our greasy hamburgers on it. So the map is completely filled with grease. It's filled with all the lettuce and tomato that got dropped onto it. So now we get strayed because we don't know how to use it. We use it incorrectly, right? We're using the shovel as a spoon. It's not going to work. And that's why on this journey, it becomes very difficult. You know, when people are when the driver begins to be sleepy, instead of looking for places to rest, we're playing the songs, the slow songs, the songs that put people to sleep. That doesn't help, right? When people needed rest stop because their biological needs, they had to go, and you're playing songs that have rains in them. You have the songs that have the waterfalls in them. And that isn't going to help, because even though these songs have their purposes and their uses, if used incorrectly, is going to make things a lot worse. And that's what happened to all of us. And that's why, even though the chapter is long, it's the longest, it's one of the longest in the Lotus Sutra, but it still can't explain all the details. And that's where Master fill in all the small gaps about how to use it. But I am not going to get too much into the specifics, okay? I'm gonna give you the overview. So the first tool that we see is the 37 Principles of Enlightenment. And it's broken into 3 parts. The first part is the 3 fours. It's the 4 establishments of mindfulness. It's the 4 right efforts and the 4 bases of spiritual power. And I want you to see is the mind, the effort, and spiritual. And it can be broken down to 3 parts. The power of your mind, or the training of your mind, the training of your body, and the training of your spiritual. What that means is the training of your mind helps you construct your mindset. It helps you frame your mindset so that when you look at things, you know how to process, you know how to analyze it in your mind intellectually. The right efforts tells you what you need to do with your body, what you need to do with your action. The spiritual power tells you, other than your mind and your body, there's actually something that is one step further. That is the spiritual. That is, whether you want to call it the spirits or the spiritual power, but in essence, it's your belief, it's your faith, it's what you believe in. It's not enough to have the framework of your thought process, but what do you believe? What is your faith? What do you believe? That's something that maybe your framework is not able to frame. For example, universe. For example, the origin of life. These are not things that you can use your mindfulness to frame, but these are the things that make you believe. So for example, here we talk about how do you think in constructs, right? The framework of your thinking analysis, and then what you need to do about it. But the spiritual power is the most important because it sets you on that path. It lets you see the hope. It always puts this hope at the light at the end of the tunnel. It propels you forward. So these are the 3 parts, the 3 fours, the minds, the body, and the spirit. Okay, so these are the 3 parts, that what we call the 3 fours. These are the tools, right? Along the way, you're going to see problems and challenges. Along the way, you need to frame the problem and then have the efforts to fix it. But not only that, but the spiritual part of it tells you always be positive, always have this idea that we can conquer, we have the tools, we should use the tools to allow us to get through the problems. That's the mind, the body, and the spirit. Next, we have the 2 5s, which are the 5 roots and the 5 strengths. I like to think of them as the roots of the plants and the strength of the plants. And what they are is, the more you train your body, the more you train your mind, the more you train your spiritual power, the deeper the root goes and the more strengths you have. That's it. So the more you work the previous part, which is the 3 4s, the more it's going to grow in the 2 5s. That's it. Next, we have 7 and 8. The more the root grows, the more awakening, the more factors of awakening you're going to have. The more adequate of these factors are going to be there. The more strength you have, the better the path is going to be paved. So essentially, the 37 principles of enlightenment is broken down into 3 parts. The 3 4s are the fundamentals, which is the cause and the conditions, the roots, the seeds that you plant, and also the conditions around, for example, the soil, the water, the sun, and all the nutrients, the seeds and the conditions. These are the things that we put in, right? The seed being the spiritual power. You believe that is the right direction. You believe it, right? So it's almost like you believe Windsor is the place you need to go. You have this destination that you already know. You set yourself on that path. You believe in this path. You're going to get there, right? That is the very most important cause. Without this cause, you'll just be lost. You'll be on the road driving, and then you'll be asking, should I get off this exit? Why should you? Because I don't know where I'm going. You could be driving, you could have all the tools, but if you don't know where you're driving, then everything is useless. You can have a full tank of gas. You can have the best car in the world, best tools in the world. But if you don't know where you're going, then it's useless. So the spiritual power tells you that you have to have faith in where you're going and why you're doing all this. The next 2 parts is mindset and effort. That is the cause. The seed is the spiritual power, knowing where you're going. The conditions are all the things around it. You have the right mindset and the right effort. And the 2 5s, the roots and the strengths, are the results. As you drive along, as you see and meet more people, as you go through the path, you get to know this place better. You get to know the people that's in the passenger seats better because you begin talking to them. You become accustomed to the weather changes. You're accustomed to the road that you're on. You're accustomed to this vehicle. That is the roots and the strength, right? The more you do something, the better you're going to be at it. That is without saying. So that's the results. The more you do something, the better you get at it. That's very natural. And the more you do something and the better you get at it, eventually you're going to develop your own ideas, your own wisdom. And that's when you are enlightened. You accumulate so much experience that you begin to have your own way, right? You begin to tell your children that, hey, daddy used to do this, and I know that it didn't work out. So I'm going to give you this experience, or this is what daddy did, and this is what really makes sense. So that's what the 37 principles of enlightenment is really to tell you, right? Focus on the 3 fundamentals, the 3 4s that you're doing, right? The body, the mind, and the spirit. Focus on doing them. Naturally, your roots and strengths are going to grow. And eventually you're going to develop the wisdom that is necessary for the consequences of the awakening of the factors of awakening to be there, to be ripe. So when you do something so much, you begin to develop your SOP. You begin to develop something that you know that is accumulated from experience, right? So now, Brother Michael would know the next time that there's some heavy furniture, like a massage chair, you probably should not try to go over the fence. And that would be something that we're just talking about it now, but it's deeply etched into your mind and memory, and especially your back, right? You're going to tell your kids in the very, very, in the future that, hey, daddy used to do this. You know, I worked out a lot, but it's not going to work this way. That is something that you know from results, and then you're going to learn from it as your experience gather, right? So that's the 37 principles of enlightenment. Tells you that if you keep at it, you're going to grow, and you're going to get better at it. You're going to get so better at it, you're going to be able to teach. You're going to be able to instruct. You're going to be able to share what you have experienced and what you have learned. So that is the 37 principle of enlightenment. So I see the time is almost up. There's more to it. We're just getting through the first very small portion of the chapter 2. But I wanted to tell you that there's more beyond. Okay, so the next parts, maybe in the future when we get more chances. But I wanted to share with everybody that the sutras itself isn't so deep and profound. It's actually telling you something very simple. It's just being placed into some archaic language that even so beautifully well written and well versed, but it's hard to understand. But if you break it down into pieces, right, it's going to tell you that now you're leaving the skillful means. Why do you need to leave the skillful means? Because you need to attain the Buddhahood. Staying here isn't going to get you there. So that's the goal, not here. That's the goal. But then tell me what that is. Well, I can tell you what it is, but it won't be what it is, right? I can tell you how sweet this latte is going to be. It is, because I drink it. But you won't know how sweet until you drink it yourself. So I could tell you that's the goal. And I can tell you is to make yourself this latte and then drink it yourself. Then you would know how sweet, and you would know how to adjust. So I'm going to give you the tools to make this latte. Same thing. I'll give you the goal. The goal is to go there to help people that are inundated. And I'm going to give you the tools, the car, the map, and the shovels, and all the tools, and the food, and the snack, and the music to play along the way. That is the first part, 37 principles of enlightenment, something for you to learn and grow. The body, the mind, and the soul, the 3 parts, right? And you grow. The next part, which I'm going to take about 2 minutes to explain, is the 10 strengths and the 4 fearlessness. So the tools, there are many, many tools. The next part of the tools talks about, now that you've got through challenges of your own, now you have the strength to share that with people. The 4 fearlessness tells you that you should be fearless about sharing this with people. Yes, there are going to be people that criticize for the things that you share. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. But there will be much, much bigger portion of the people, they're going to be thanking you. They're going to be grateful, even though you're going to remember the negative things that people tell you. But you should be fearless. You should understand that if you follow the doctrines, if you follow the path that is the 37 principles of enlightenment, then you have the strength. You know how you can do to share and to lead others, to instruct, to illustrate, to pave the way for others to continue what you have learned. So it's almost like if you have a convoy and you're the lead car, you would tell people that there's a red light coming. So everybody should start slowing down, because the convoy could be 10 cars, could be 5 cars, could be many, many cars and vans. And you would be telling people to slow down, or you'll be telling people that now it's time, get ready to make a right turn. And there are many, many cars. So there are different formations that, maybe the lead car will beginning to shift onto the right lane, right turn lane, whatnot. So now you're not just driving yourself, but you're now leading a convoy. Okay, that's the 10 strengths and the 4 fearlessness. Anyway, so I'm already over time. So that's the sharing for today. But we're going to have more in the future to share with you the essence or the main points of this chapter. But stay tuned. This is definitely something very, very interesting. Think of it as a road trip, and you're going to be seeing that this chapter isn't so hard, but we just need to parse it. We just need to be able to translate it well to understand it and to be able to use it. Otherwise, we would just be using the map as a table mat, you know, as a mat where or as a napkin, and that's not going to help. That's not going to help at all. Okay, so use the tools the right way and know which tools to use are very important, and that's what this chapter is trying to tell us. Okay, that's my sharing for today. Thank you for giving me this time to share, and I'm very grateful for our brothers and sisters to share for our Australian brothers and sisters to share the stories ahead of me, and wonderful sharings about helping others. And right away, you know that it doesn't matter how many days I tell you on and on, or how many days that Hannah and Georgia and Robert and Michael and Sharon share about their joy about helping others. If you don't do it yourself, it doesn't really matter how many Sharons and Hannahs and Georgias and Michaels and Roberts tell you. You're still not gonna know how joyful it is. And that's what this chapter is really talking about. And then giving you the tools to do it. Okay. So thank you all, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Thank you.
No, Brother Joe, for the wonderful session, the sharing on these skillful teachings, as well as the 37 principles of enlightenment. Wow, as though Brother Joe can read our mind. Actually, we have this global training volunteers, and the book that they are sharing, learning this round is 37 principles of enlightenment, and everyone is asking if there is any recording. So I just sent to the group. Okay, we will share this recording and hope the participants can read. It's mainly from Nepal, India, Sri Lanka, all these wonderful families. And truly today, very heartwarming session to hear from our Australian family. And we will hear soon from them, this round from Brother Robert Frazer. So stay tuned. We'll hear, there will be wonderful stories. We heard that Sister Sharon is going to Africa with Brother Sun. Okay, and congratulations to Brother Michael. And we understand that I'm not sure already married or not yet the wife, right? Shiny, she couldn't be here today, but to all of you and all this generation, the third generation as well, lineage. Wow, truly awesome. Wow, for inspiring us today. Okay, before we end the session, we have a special occasion. Apparently today, not apparently, today is Sister Lily's birthday. Sister Lily, our ever diligent sister, she's always very reliable, helping us to make sure all these connections, mapping it to a YouTube link, all this in place, so all of us could have this ease and peace listening. Maybe if possible, we can sing Sister Lily a song, or maybe better play from YouTube. Is it better? Sorry, pass one. Okay. Happy birthday! I'm so glad I'm going to see.
Happy birthday, Sister Lily.
Okay, Sister Kaya.
Happy birthday,
Sister
Lily. 18 years old, Sister Lily.
Our Samadhi sister always.
Truly Samadhi.
Thank you.
Sister Lily, birthday song sang by this a better voice than mine.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
And whoever birthday today, we heard there's no one asking.
Happy birthday, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Yay! Happy birthday!
Happy birthday, Sister Lily.
Thank you. Thank you, brothers and sisters. First time having my this celebration over the online with global family. Appreciate
global birthday party.
Yeah.
Ini memang global.
Thank you.
Okay. Continue later with Sister Lily. Yes.
Okay, Kak Ern.
Happy birthday, Sister Lily.
Kak Ern, thank you, Kak Ern.
Okay, Kak Ern, brothers and sisters, for your presence and your support. Hope that each of us could sustain this Dharma joy and take in another piece of Dharma Master and Hualien love of life. Let us invite Brother Joe to lead us in making 3 bows to the Buddha and Master Cheng Yen as we depart to apply all these wonderful teachings in our everyday life. Let us pay our respects to our teachers of life, really was so true. First bow. Second bow. Third bow. Kak Ern. See everyone. Sweet, Kak Ern, take care. Jayo, take care. Stay safe, Kak Ern. For the wonderful session, Kak Ern. Happy birthday, Sister Lily.
Bye-bye. Happy birthday.
Karen, Suji, Sydney. Thank you, Georgia, sister.
Oh yeah, the wonderful family. Or maybe want to take a group photo.